Hello and welcome to our School of Biodiversity, One Health and Veterinary Medicine Postgraduate Masters Q&A session. We've got a massive panel today of students and academics, so hopefully we'll be able to answer all your questions on our various programmes. We've had a few questions submitted beforehand that have asked about finance and accommodation. This session won't cover on that, we've only got half an hour, but we do have a postgraduate event on the 6th of March where there'll be sessions on sort of finance, funding, accommodation. So I'll pop the link to that in the chat, and that'd be a great session to attend for more general information. But if you do have any questions about the various programmes, their structure, various things like that, do use the chat box and we'll do our best to answer all those questions. So we're going to go to Rudy, who's going to give us a bit of an overview because we've got quite a few programmes covered in this session, and then we'll go around the room and introduce everybody. All right, over to you, Rudy.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Yeah, I thought it would be useful just to give a little bit of an overview because there's so many different programs. So we are the school with a very long name of Biodiversity, One Health and Veterinary Medicine. So we are a grouping of lots of different specializations we have epidemiologists, we have ecologists, we have physiologists, we have quantitative biologists, and we have veterinarians, which gives us a very unique position, bringing all these different things together under one roof. And so we are able to offer quite a diversity of different programs, and they are somewhat linked with each other. So students coming into our school, they are starting off with one big course where they learn basically key research skills. And these are all the skills which employer have asked us they would like to see in the students they are going to employ in the future. It sometimes feels a little bit challenging, but all the students always passed it, and they were always amazed what they actually managed to achieve in that short period of time. And afterwards, students go in different specializations. They have to do certain courses, but they can also choose from other courses. So you will have an opportunity to broaden your expertises and your skills and so on. So these are the different programs here which are represented. Well, I guess we're going around the room where they can sort of introduce themselves. So there's some academics here, but there's also some students here who are either doing currently the program or doing the program, had done the program in the past. So I'm representing the Animal Welfare Science, Ethics and Law program, dealing with generally problems about animal welfare, but also the legislation and about the ethics of using animals in all sorts of different contexts. And we have Jessie McCarthy here, who completed the program last year.
Hi. Yeah, as Rudy said, I finished last year, and now I've returned to my vet studies. So I'm not finished university yet, but I welcome any questions anyone has.
Thank you. I pass over to the sort of the quantitative stream to Simon.
Hi, I'm Simon Babian. I'm taking over the direction of the quantitative methods in biodiversity, conservation, and epidemiology stream. Our focus is really on developing quantitative skills that can apply across multiple biological problems, essentially dealing with the fact that biology is increasingly becoming data-driven, and high data streams are a massive part of research these days. And so what we do in this stream is to develop programming skills, skills in statistics using R, and then students have the opportunity to go deeper in certain tracks, for example, Bayesian statistics, causal inference, and generally speaking, all high throughput data systems. And the idea is to basically equip students with skills that will be very useful in academia, but even outside of academia if they go into bioindustry in general. And so we have a student here from this year's cohort, Nadia. And so maybe Nadia, if you have a few words.
Hello, I'm Nadia, and I'm unfortunately doing the quantitative methods course and sacrificing my life for a year. But it's a necessary sacrifice, and although statistics might not sound very attractive to biologists and ecologists generally, it's such an important skill, and I've basically come back to university after working for 5 years because I've realised that need, and it's definitely super worth it.
Thank you. Then we have some conservation streams, and we have here Luca Nelli, who's fronting one of these courses.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rudy. So my name is Luca Nelli. I'm the coordinator of the Applied Conservation Science Master Program. And so this is a relatively new program. So we launched last year. So we have like the first cohort of students like wrapping up this year, finishing this year. But essentially the overall idea of this program is to provide and to equip students with tools for developing a career in conservation. So generally like in biodiversity and wildlife conservation or natural conservation in general. Without necessarily being interested, if you like, in an academic career. So rather than providing students with essentially very advanced quantitative and statistical skills, like compared to the QMBC, for example, we want them to develop skills for a career in conservation in essentially in the real world outside academia. So we are hoping to have students that are able to find jobs in, for example, with public bodies like conservation areas or public agencies or private sectors that deal with biodiversity conservation, like national parks, ecological consultancies, etc. But still, this is going to be, of course, a very scientific program. So we want them to be able to develop collaborations with academia. So we want to form them in a way that they can interact with academics. And yeah, as I said, this is a new program, so we unfortunately none of our students this year was able to make it. So I'll do that part.
Thank you so much, Luca. Then we have a stream on epidemiology of infectious disease with particular emphasis on antimicrobial resistance. And one of the leaders of that program is Tiziana here.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tiziana Lembo. By background, I'm a veterinary scientist, but I also do a lot of kind of interdisciplinary work, and I kind of bring that ethic into the way that we run the program. So it's, as Rudy mentioned, it's epidemiology of infectious diseases and antimicrobial resistance. So we start with kind of a basic course on general epidemiological aspects of infectious diseases, and then in term 2 we move into the more specifics of antimicrobial resistance, and we tackle AMR from the more epidemiological issues onto the genetic and genomic issues, and then societal aspects as well. So in that way we try to kind of provide the students with a broad range of skills, but also background in the very complex issues around AMR. And our program attracts students from many parts of the world, but also many disciplinary backgrounds, from human medicine to veterinary medicine. We also have microbiologists, biologists, and the program is designed in a way that we don't just develop kind of the scientific thinking about epidemiology and AMR, but also practical skills. So a lot of our students end up in either going back to government jobs. Some of them come from government jobs already, or they go into PhD programs, or government jobs in the UK. So we are developing a lot of professionals that end up in health agency positions after the program. And today we got Iris here, who completed the program with us last year. And I don't know if Iris, you want to say a few words about your experience and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Iris. Yeah, like Tiziana said, I just graduated in December, so quite a recent graduate. I'm currently a first-year PhD student at the University of Edinburgh. I really enjoy the program, so if you have any questions, I really happily answer.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And then there's of course also the possibility that without specializing in one particular of these areas, but after the core research skill course, you just go on and do one project for a much longer time than all the other programs are doing. And that's our MRES program in ecology and evolution. We have Kirsty here who is currently doing that program. If you don't mind just to say a few words about it, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm Kirsty. I'm doing the MRes in Ecology and Environmental Biology. This course we've got such a broad range of people that come into it. Everyone's projects are completely different. So you do kind of have your own creative freedom to work your project into whatever you want to. I prefer like behavior and conservation, so I've kind of took that road. But yeah, it is very, very broad and different. So I'm really enjoying it.
Amazing, thank you. What a lovely diverse panel. I think that's something that I really came across here is there's so much opportunity, which is amazing. One of the sort of questions that we've been asked, and I know it's a really difficult question to ask, but it's maybe one for our students to answer. We're always asked, how many days and how many hours am I expected to be like in classes? Because I think going from undergraduate to postgraduate can be quite a jump. And it's not maybe as much time in class. So can you maybe give us a bit of an idea of how often you're in class versus not? And I know that'll vary week on week.
Yeah, I can start doing I'm doing the Sport Masters. So we have classes from about the end of September until April. The first semester, which ran from September until Christmas, we were in class almost every day. And the classes are generally scheduled for about 4 hours at a time. So I guess that is good if you're commuting because you don't have to come in and the schedule's not fractured like across the days. And then moving on to the second semester, we have about 3 days a week or sometimes 2 days a week. I actually think it's a similar contact time to my undergraduate degree of marine biology. So it wasn't a massive shock in terms of teaching, but maybe the blocks are longer. Maybe undergraduate, depending on where you are, is more like 1 or 2 hours of lecture, but this is more like you have a lecture for maybe 50% and then a workshop for 50% of the 4-hour period.
Yeah, I would completely echo what Nadia said. I think bearing in mind when we don't have class, we still feel really supported. I always felt that I could email Rudy or one of our other lecturers if I did need something or I was confused or anything like that. So you're definitely not left in the lurch when you don't have class, which I think is definitely really, really advantageous. And if you are kind of slightly struggling with the adjustment or the change to a master's, I do think there's so much support to help you.
I would also say that for the MRes, it's kind of completely different. We are in the first like classes up until Christmas, but then you're kind of left to plan and write a lit review for your own project. So we don't have anything scheduled, but there is a lot of work to do. So I do treat it like a 9 to 5, but it isn't actually scheduled. So you do have to have like a bit more like, yeah, strictness with yourself.
Do you find that difficult? Is it difficult to then manage your own time if you've not got set classes? Or is it just something you get used to?
Yeah, it's definitely something I get used to. I can't be trusted to work from home, so I definitely try and treat it like a work 9 to 5 and like get into the university as much as humanly possible. But no, I think I've always kind of found that easiest. And I think as soon as you are out the house and you're in the office and trying to do stuff, like it does get quite easy. Yeah. We also have a very supportive group. Like we're only a group of 20 of us, and we're all like quite friendly and like quite close knit. So a lot of us are always in together, like kind of helping each other out, which is nice.
Perfect. I don't know if any of the other panel have got anything to add to that, or we're quite happy. We've covered everything.
I guess in one sense, it does help you to kind of time management. And that's something very, very important for your professional career later on, whatever you're doing, academia or non-academia. And as the different students said, that's something, a skill they actually are learning or took away from that program as well. So, yeah, it's work, but it's manageable.
Yeah, and there's no better way of learning it to actually do it. And in terms of the classes, whereabouts are the different programmes held? Is it main campus or is it Glasgow? Is it off or is it a bit mixed? Would you like to kick us off?
Yeah,
I
I
think
can
all
start
our
with,
teach. Yeah, you go on, Simon.
Sure. Yeah. So for the at least for QMBC, we because we spend a lot of time using computers and so on, we're in computer clusters or yeah, fairly comfortable rooms on the main campus in modern buildings most of the time. So we're pretty well treated.
I think all our teaching does actually take place on the main campus. There's lots of buildings, and sometimes we have to move a little bit, but we do that in order to get actually the good rooms for our teaching. Some of the programs might go occasionally a little bit wild. They might go visiting sites where they, for instance, work with animals or something like that, going to a farm. The university has a university farm, and I think most students will at some stage or another go to that university farm. We have a field station, and probably everybody will be spending a little bit of time at some time out at the field station on the bonny banks of Loch Lomond in a wonderful kind of forest setting, or sometimes visit is going to be further afield there, typically for a day or so. So mostly on the main campus, but you see a bit more of Scotland as well.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing the different facilities that our college has, that it's not on main campus, a lot of it is off. So it's amazing the facilities we've got. And in
Sorry,
terms of,
if I can add to that.
Yeah.
So in the epidemiology program, some of the projects, independent projects that the students do in term 3 are lab-based, and we have a good laboratory infrastructure at Gars Cube where the students can do their lab work. And Iris's project, for example, was lab-based, so she spent all of her summer at Gars Cube.
there's worse
Just wanna
places
say
to
that-
spend your summer.
Yeah, sorry, just want to say Garscube is very accessible from the main campus. There is public transport, so it's quite easy to get to. I think sometimes people get scared because it looks quite far away on the map, but really nice campus. So
I think that's probably quite a nice segue into one of the questions that we've been asked, and it's about the projects, about sort of how you pick your topic, just how it's all set up when you pick your topic. So would somebody like to sort of give us a wee overview of how that typically works?
So for the MRes, we got a list out at the start of the year, and you just kind of get in contact with the different supervisors that are doing projects that you have an interest in. And I think for me, I went totally off list. I kind of knew what road I wanted to go down, and I found a supervisor that might be able to help with that. So you do also have some creative freedom if you wanted to, or you can get some form of influence. But we picked our projects just before Christmas. So we've got plenty of time to plan and get it all put together. So there is a range of what people have done together as well, though.
So we typically do MRes a bit early because it's a 10 months project. So the taught programs have a 3 months project, and that is a little bit later. But so Nadia, you just went through that process. Well, you probably picked your project right at the beginning already anyway.
Yeah. Yes, we had to pick our projects by February, I think it was. And also we had, I think, a similar list that Kirsty's talking about, where supervisors detail their subject area, and some supervisors have got a project in mind, or there's still the flexibility that you can go and speak to a supervisor, or even co-supervisors if you've got multiple angles and different disciplines you want to cover for your project. It's a really nice process. Also, you started to have quite a few modules by the time that February rolls around, so you kind of get to know the staff and what's on offer and what subjects take your interest, and it's really exciting. And it will be a period that will start from May until September. So that will be then independent studying, but still with quite a lot of supervisory support.
Can I just
I think
add?
for us,
Oh, sorry.
No, you first.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to add that we also have several examples when where students comes to us with some ideas already in mind. So we have had examples of students that maybe because they were already working with some, I don't know, external partners or organizations, or they already had some data set maybe from their previous studies from undergrad that they wanted to keep working on. So in those cases, we try to match them with the most suitable supervisor, and then we develop the project together with the students. So it's not always us providing a list of projects, but there's also this sort of dual interaction.
And I guess in particular, in your case, Luca, you also offer projects which are coming from external bodies like conservation organizations. So as a student, you have a chance to actually get outside the university and working with a real organization in the real world, but being supervised by a university academic. So getting already a little foot into a potential professional environment for a future job. I think the other thing I want to say, we give lists which are well in excess of the number of projects we are using. So you have a very rich choice of projects. And we let students to explore different options, and we don't make it a competition. It is not that you have to bag your project first thing and then you get it, but we let everybody to choose and then trying to allocate students to their preferred projects. So everybody has the same chance. It's not a race. It's not a competition. You have enough time to choose projects, and you're not going to be constrained in your choice of projects.
Perfect. And Iris and Jessie, what about yourselves? Like, how did you find that whole experience of actually completing the project?
I was probably similar to Kirsty in the fact when I joined the course, I had a bit of an idea. So how I went about it, I just looked up a supervisor that was kind of vaguely in my subject area and contacted him, and we got on really well. So I found that quite easy. And then in terms of how I kind of worked my project, my supervisor and I met once a week and we just checked in, and we had a bit of input from a few other lecturers, a few other supervisors. Yeah, I found it really enjoyable. I really, really loved doing my dissertation, and I actually have just got it sent off to a journal, so hopefully we'll get it published. But yeah, there was a lot of freedom. I really enjoyed that, and I think you build up the skills to manage your time and that kind of thing throughout the first 2 semesters. So by the time you get to your dissertation, you're really kind of you've had a bit of practice. Yeah, I really speak so highly of it. I loved it. I really loved it.
Yeah, I had a bit of a different experience, I think, because it was a lab-based project. So I think there tends to be a bit less flexibility in terms of what the aims are and in the time frame that they can be achieved in. I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do, so I actually looked at the list when it came out and contacted the supervisor when I could. I really enjoyed my project. I think it was one of the best experiences of the program. And yeah, you get really immersed in the lab you're in. At least that was my experience. So you get to attend lab meetings and talk to not just your supervisor, but colleagues and technicians and other students that are there. And everyone's really helpful. So if you're ever in trouble, you can just email someone on the course.
Fab. And one of the other questions we've been asked is it possible to manage a part-time job alongside your MSc? Kirsty, you're nodding. Is that a yes?
Yeah, I have a part-time job where I work 2 evenings and I work at the weekends. I do like double shifts at the weekends. Normally just one day. But yeah, I definitely find it manageable. I just finished my undergrad like at Glasgow Uni before. So I'd worked all the way through my undergrad as well. So I have found it kind of okay. I know that a couple of other people in my course are working at the same time as well, and I think everyone's doing all right. I think if you have a job that's quite flexible and stuff, it's okay.
Oh, that's great. Just for international students, it's probably worth noting that you will have some restrictions with your visa, so just yeah, check that out. And I think maybe you get time for a couple of questions, but one of them we're always asked is how can we prepare for starting our MSc? Is there anything you can do? Is there anything you wish you had done before you started it, or wish you'd have known to do? Or has it all been quite fine starting?
I can speak to that one. I remember I emailed Rudy beforehand because I was feeling a bit anxious about starting, and I said, can I do anything? How can I prepare? What can I read? And I think Rudy replied and gave me a name of a few books, but he said, I recommend you just rest and yeah, start in a good headspace with lots of enthusiasm. And so that's what I did, and that was fine. I didn't I didn't feel underprepared. I think if you're starting a master's, which I assume everyone is, of their subject area, then it will be fine. It will be okay. Yeah, so for me anyway, I don't think there's anything I would have changed or would have done in preparation.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting as well, if you've been given an offer for University of Glasgow, you've obviously got the skill set there that somebody's looked at your application and thinks you can do this. Yeah, so I think Rudy's advice of rest up's probably quite good and a bit of a heads up of what's to come. One of our, I think maybe our last question to finish on is just after MSCs, what kind of things do students tend to go on to do? So I think you mentioned here we've got a couple of PhDs, but like career-wise, things like that, have you got any examples of what students have gone on to do?
I think it might be actually sort of quite diverse across the different programs. So I think in the introduction, both Simon and Tiziana and also Luca have described a little bit where people are going to. So our students get very, very strong skills which employers are looking for. So the people go on to academia, to PhD, like Iris. We have vets which have come maybe sometimes just intercalating like Jessie did and go back to the vet degree. But we have people who go in government agency, conservation agencies, campaign organizations, a huge diversity of different jobs, which will vary from program to program a bit.
Tiziana, did you want to add something in there?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add that, I mean, at least our program, we don't necessarily prepare the students to become academics. And in fact, even in the range of projects now, we have kind of expanded to include also more kind of policy type of projects, risk assessments and things like that, that are the type of activities that are quite in demand in government jobs with health agencies, for example. So a lot of our students will enter the job market. Very few will go on to PhDs, or if they do, they often have a break. So they go into a job and then into PhD. But the analytical skills that you gain through these programs are really quite valuable because there is a lot of demand for research assistants in academia, but also, as I said, in health agencies.
Perfect. Well,
yeah, I can probably add.
Yeah, Simon.
With the quantitative skills, of course, they're in high demand in government jobs, for instance, health industry, epidemiology modeling, all those kinds of jobs, which are very topical.
Great, lots of opportunities then for all our graduates, which is great. And that's actually now 11:15. That was like very quick, and I think we covered a lot of information there. So thanks very much to our panel for taking time out of your busy days, because I know you've all got other things to be doing. And hopefully everybody joining has found that really helpful. We have recorded this session, so that will be emailed out in the next few days for you to watch back in case you missed anything, because there was a lot covered. In the meantime, if you do have any further questions, we do have our administration email addresses on all of our web pages. So if you do have any questions, please send them in. Our administration teams are brilliant at picking up on anything that comes through. And like our students have said, once you start, if you've got any sort of concerns or you're struggling with anything, do reach out. It's better to do that quicker, sooner rather than later. And like we've heard, everybody's very supportive, which is great. So yeah, thanks again to everybody, and hopefully we'll see you in September. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.